Hey everyone, Tony Walsh here. Welcome back to the channel and another edition of Wednesday in the Word. I'll go ahead and tell you that the Farm Truck Friday video for Friday morning will probably be delayed. We're preparing for right now what is Tropical Storm Helene, but will turn into Hurricane Helene. That when she slams the Florida coast, it will come across the part of Georgia where I work. So when I go to work Thursday morning, I will not come home until probably sometime Friday. So I don't know if I'll get a chance to make the Friday video on Thursday evening while I got some downtime at work, because the hurricane's supposed to hit us after dark. So if I don't have my Friday video, you know why. But my prayers are still for everyone, even though if I don't make a video. So let's get to our Wednesday in the Word. Now, a lot of you that are my age, some a little bit younger, if you remember a TV show, and I cannot remember who the host was, and I keep forgetting to look that up. But there was a show called Kids Say the Darndest Thing. And actually on our local radio station, about 6:30 in the morning, they have a little 2 or 3 minute clip of that show where the host is asking kids their thoughts on something. And as parents and grandparents, we cringe when somebody asks our kids something, because most of the time they respond by telling the truth, whether we like it or not, and we'll just, cringe when that happens, because kids do say the darndest things. So in this episode, the host was asking one child, saying, I assume it's a boy, because he says, if I were in charge of the world, I'd cancel oatmeal, Monday mornings, and allergy shots. He then says, if I were in charge of the world, there'd be brighter nightlights, healthier hamsters, and basketball goals 48 inches and lower. He says, if I were in charge of the world, you wouldn't be lonely. You wouldn't have to be clean. You wouldn't have to have bedtimes. Or you wouldn't have to hear, don't punch your sister. Then he says, heck, I wouldn't even have sisters. And he closes out by saying, if I were in charge of the world, a chocolate sundae with whipped cream and nuts would be a vegetable, and a person who sometimes forgot to brush or sometimes forgot to flush would still be allowed to be in charge of the world. So here's my question to you. 3 fingers pointing back at me. 1, 2, 3. What would you do if you were in charge of the world? See, now it's fun trying to imagine that, to think about, having all that power. But most of us know that there is only one true person in charge of the world. And that person is God himself. But knowing that, we'd still like to think how we could have some influence for good over some people in their lives. We'd want to be great in the best sense of the word, and we'd want to make a difference for the good in our world. But the question is, how could we do that? How do we do that? How can we truly become great in the world? How can we be a positive influence to those around us? How can we be an important person in other people's lives by being one that they would want to look up to and one that they would want to emulate? Think about that. What would you have to do to be that great? But think about the great one that came to earth. While you're thinking about that, I want to tell this little story. It's a story about a mother sheep. And she was had her babies, and they were down by a river. Not right at the river, but near a river. So she told her lambs, do not go into the tall green grass, and do not drink from the river. because there is a tiger there, and that tiger will kill you and eat you. Now, we all know that we've had kids, and if we've got grandkids, somewhere in the pile there's one that's going to be mischievous. It's going to just push, your buttons a little bit, just how far can they go before they get in trouble. Well, there was this one little lamb decided that grass looks pretty green, so I think I'm going to go eat some of that nice green grass. Well, the lamb got its belly full and thought, I need some water. So the lamb just bebopped down to the edge of the riverbank, and as it was drinking, it heard a rough voice behind it, and it was the tiger. The tiger asked the little lamb, what are you doing drinking from my river? And before the lamb could say anything, the tiger lunged through the air, and in a moment's notice, the mother sheep jumped in the way. The mother sheep took the gnashing of the teeth and the ripping of the claws to save her baby lamb so that it may live. Well, that's what Jesus did for you. It's what Jesus did for me. It's what Jesus did for us. When Satan was after us because of our own sins, Jesus jumped in the way and took the trauma for us. Isaiah 53:6 says, we all, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us has turned his own way, and the Lord has laid upon him the iniquity of us all. See, that's what the cross is all about. If you remember last week, I talked about the burden of the cross. And this is following up. This was Jesus' burden, was to take the cross and die on that cross for us, to suffer for our iniquities, to suffer for our sins. That little lamb meant no harm, but the tiger did. There are times we mean no harm, but Satan does. And Jesus is there for us. Jesus was the greatest one to ever walk on this earth. He was the first that came to be the last. He was the greatest that came to be the least of all. Now for us, that seems like a foolhardy perspective. But see, it was God's plan all along to rescue us from our shame, to rescue us from our guilt, to rescue us from our own sins. And he could only do that by sending his one and only son, Jesus, to die on the cross for us. So if you, me, us, if we truly want to be great, if we truly want to have that positive influence on others, then we must learn this lesson from Jesus himself. Follow him, the one who came to be the least. That requires us to serve the least among us. We're to welcome those that have nothing in society. We're to receive as honored guests those who have no power or position in our world. Because true greatness comes from people where you least expect it. And it comes from the least among us. So if you, me, us, if we truly want to be great, if we truly want to be that difference maker, if we truly want to do good for the world, then do what Jesus did. Be the least among those around you. That's our Wednesday in the Word for today. I hope y'all have a blessed day. I hope y'all have a blessed rest of the week. For those that are in the path of the hurricane, from Florida to Georgia, on up into Tennessee, it's going to be multiple states. I pray for you, your families, in whatever you have. For our brothers and sisters out in the Midwest and Texas and Louisiana and all that have had the previous storms. I know I was listening to Nothing Edited yesterday, or it might have been this morning, or yesterday or this morning, saying that, and I don't remember which hurricane was it, but she still has trees down and they just haven't come to clean them up yet. So, and there's another hurricane brewing out there in the Atlantic. So that's not saying that we're safe. So everyone just know, and I'm going to say it, I just don't know how much more Jesus is going to take, how much more God's going to take of what we've done to his creation before he says enough is enough. So make sure that if you don't know who God is, if you don't know who Jesus is, find somebody that can talk to you. There's somebody in your midst, whether it's me or somebody else, there's somebody in your midst that wants to share the good news of Jesus Christ with you. That is my service to you. Y'all take care, and God bless.